Hello and welcome. I'm Kirsten Jones, a peak performance and sports parenting coach. This is the Raising Athletes podcast, and we are excited to have you here today. We're getting so many great guests on, and as we talk about the book, Raising Empowered Athletes, it's good to talk about the book, the world of youth sports from every different angle. So it's fun to have, today we're going to have Brett Mackinnon on from NBC. Last week I was a guest on one of their podcasts, which is going to come out in January. And today we want to talk to him about it from as a parent, as an athlete himself, but also from the business side of it, because we talk about it growing year over year. And as we know, it's not getting any smaller. So Brett, welcome. And thanks so much for being on today.
Hey, Kirsten, thanks so much. I look forward to you coming out on our podcast in January. We've had a lot of fun with that. The team told me what they've recorded so far has been great. So happy to be with you. Happy to talk about this topic. Hopefully we can add some value to everybody else who listens in.
Yay. So we like to start here talking about your own journey, because I believe grew up in Montana playing every sport in every season. So probably like you in Minnesota, whatever was in front of you at the time. Could you share with our audience, like, how you got into, what you're doing by your childhood?
Yeah, it's fun to talk about this. So, at 5 years old, I stepped on a soccer field, instantly found that this was the world for me. If I would have told you roughly 37 years later, which gives away my age, I'm 42, that I get to have a profession in this industry and support and empower, our customers to go make impacts in their communities, I would have told you this was not a job. It wasn't going to exist. But growing up, from 5 playing soccer, which is not a sport I played forever, is I played everything under the sun, every day, and really kind of pushed myself. My parents were such a big part of giving me opportunity to find what I love to do and chase what I love to do at every moment. And so that 5-year-old soccer player ended up paring down sports over time. And I'll just kind of give you the walk of how that happened. Was I really ended up getting focused on 3 sports in particular: hockey. We're in the state of hockey. Hard not to say that. Football, as well as baseball. I found a time where I was doing all of those at one time, many times in the summer, and that didn't work. So around 14, I stopped playing baseball, kept playing football and hockey, played those through high school, ended up going on and playing hockey in junior. I played in the United States Hockey League in between high school and college. And then I was really fortunate in 2000 and 2001 to come back to the University of Minnesota to play hockey for the Golden Gophers, which was a big passion of mine throughout my life. I mean, that was the North Star for every kid playing hockey in Minnesota as a kid. And I was able to be on a team that had a lot of success. We came back, we won the first national title my freshman year. I was a 50-50 player, mostly, I think a locker room person, right? I was a culture and hardworking person, played about 50% of the games. We won the national title in 2001 and 2. We came back and did it again in 2002 and 2003. And then the next 2 years, we had a great class. We couldn't get there, but we made it to the Elite Eight and the Final Four, or the Frozen Four. And so overall, that was the end of my sport journey. I moved on to my professional life. But overall, just had an amazing life in sport as a kid and get to now continue to do that as an adult.
Awesome. We just had another hockey professional on a couple of weeks ago, and I love hearing the different backgrounds. What have you taken with you into your professional world? We have a lot of parents who listen, a lot of current athletes who listen. And one of the things I like to say is the ball stops, or maybe in your case, the puck stops dropping for all of us at a certain point in life. But it's the life lessons that we take with us that set us up for future success. What are the big lessons that you take away in how you now run, your business?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think I had that transitional moment too. When I stopped playing hockey, I was a reasonably good student and felt like college was important, but it wasn't the main thing. I kept the main thing. The main thing was school was part of that. And I had to find myself. But I think through that was finding something that I would love. And we can talk about that later in my profession, is if you can find something you love and wake up and do that every day, that's a great way to live your life. And so I think shaping your life and your kids around the things you love is a great thing to do. Discipline, right? This was instilled for me as a kid. My parents were big on, if you said you're going to do something, you do it, right? So if you want to be on that team, you show up, and you show up on time. And, that was a big thing. I think that's a big thing in life, right? Is, are we accountable to what we said we were going to do? Are you going to be a good team player, right? You have to be, not, leadership characteristics come through sport quite often. Is being a great teammate, communicating and having fun with the kids you're growing up with is such a big, important part of that. Those communities I created from age 5 to 18 I see those people every day. I see them in business life. I see them in personal life. And those communities became different communities over time, and they came together. And so I think if I were just to do this in summary, is you just have these basic necessities in life that if you can carry those principles into your professional career, they're a great base to have success, and they're very easy to follow. Of course, hard work. You got to work hard to have success. And so that's a big piece of it as well. But I think there's simple characteristics that if you can point back to when it was really fun and apply that to your business life, and then work hard and be disciplined and show up on time and be a great teammate, pretty easy life to live.
Yes, all of that. And we talk about all of those principles all the time because there are 10 things that don't require any talent, and they're showing up on time. They're having a great attitude. They're things like being a great teammate. They're things like your body language and your eye contact. And, I think these young athletes, they're on this hamster wheel and thinking that it's all about the things that we value from an outside perspective of size and athleticism and all of those, which are, of course, externally are important. But more importantly, I think the things that we take, again, I took long after I stopped playing volleyball, but when I got to Nike, it was all about how disciplined are you? Are you a good teammate? How can you collaborate around the boardroom table? It's not just about again, how high you can jump or how fast you can skate. And so I love that translated perfectly for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you bring it up. Is the moments I remember most from my sport experience was in the locker room or at the team dinner or just enjoying the evening watching something I was aspiring to be with my friends, right? And I think for work, it's the same way, right? We present and we get in and say, here's what we're going to do, and here's our goals and objectives and our priorities. But all the work happens outside of that, right? What we say as leader or leadership to go to achieve, all the work happens doing it with the people you really like working with and chasing a common mission. And so it's so relatable, right? I mean, the good times are not always when you spiked the ball or you won the match or you won the game. It's all the work that goes into it. You got to love the journey.
Yes. So how did you then make the transition? Because I think I talked to a lot of pro athletes and a lot of college athletes, right? And I know my joke is, for the first time graduating from college was the first time that I wasn't getting recruited since kindergarten, Red Rover, right? Like, so having a life of athleticism where you were like always on a team to, okay, now you have a degree, go. How did you approach that pivot point in your life?
Poorly, super poorly. Used to being recruited, not used to having figured it out, right? So I'll skip the first 3 years. I'll bring you to an inflection moment. I had a friend who, after I stumbled around in a few things, said, "I think you're a salesperson." I said, "I'm not sure I am," but and there was a company that had come to Minnesota. It was a telecom company who was aggressively growing in Minneapolis, had a really great training program. And, telecom, of the 100 years of that industry or so, have really been notorious for great training programs and hyper aggressive sales tactics, which not necessarily is good. But I was fortunate to get a job with this company, and it was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my entire life, and it was the most rewarding. And when I see those people and communicate and see with what they're doing today, we all went through a common experience. And I'll just give you a little bit of what it looked like. Is we wore suits every day in the cold in Minnesota. We went into business to business, small businesses, medium businesses. We knocked on the door. We asked for the owner. We had to get business cards. We had to take notes, 50 of those per day. You went back to the office. You reviewed those with your manager. You filed them in some new CRM that no one had actually ever figured out. So I had Rolodexes of notes. 2 days a week, we'd make 150 phone calls to those people to schedule meetings. And every day, though, it started with you'd come to the office and you'd do role play. And so if I take anything away from that of how, what's happened after that, was I found this moment of saying, okay, I can do that. I don't want to do it exactly that way, but here's what it's going to take to compete in the professional world. Through that process, I had one other job, and through it, I found a relationship and found what became SportsEngine. And SportsEngine was this company that had a mission. It was named something different at that time, founded under the vision of helping youth sports organization automate the things that were really hard and make it easy on the youth sports volunteer. And so I found this place 10 years ago. It's almost coming up on the day, and just fell in love with it. And so through that next 10 years, I think I had a different job every year for 7 of them. And every time somebody said, "You want to go try and do this and take this next challenge?" I said, "Yeah, let's try that." Right. So it wasn't a perfect journey. It was super hard. I found something that I thought I could be good at. I committed myself to it, and I've been just super fortunate to have a ton of opportunity at now what is NBC Sports Next, but through finding SportsEngine about 10 years ago.
We have something very similar because I joined Nike, but in Eastern Europe, where you think, okay, big bad Nike, but it was in a place that was super remote, that nobody paid attention to, that didn't have as many resources. So you had to be super entrepreneurial, and you wore like 25 different hats. And that was kind of cool because you got to experience and try things that probably if you were at the mothership, you would have never gotten the chance to do. That sounds a little bit like what SportsEngine got to be for you.
Yeah, it was amazing. I came in December of 13, roughly 70 employees in total. We had just raised a round of venture capital. And over the next 2 years, we added about 250 people. So like you probably saw, as you go through those entrepreneurial moments, we're hiring classes of 20 and 25 people. And I still get to work with many of those colleagues today, or I see them at other companies having a huge amount of success. That's an amazing moment to go through that type of entrepreneurial growth, to eventually be acquired by NBC, then to be further integrated in NBC Sport Next and do the things we get to do today. So yeah, I mean, it was an amazing ride, one in which you might get one time in your life to go do it. If you get multiple times to do it, good on you. But it was so fun. I mean, it's been so fun.
So let's dive into the weeds a little bit more and here. Can you unpack for, again, people listening? Because I mean, I've got it on my phone. I've got kids playing sports. So we're all using the app. Talk about, where you've come from, where you are, and what your vision is. I see you just launched a new streaming service. So there's a lot of exciting things you're doing. Share with us a little peek behind the curtain.
Yeah, I mean, I talked a little bit about the vision, which started in 2008 as a very small company out of a dorm room, not dissimilar to every other technology company, but it was really born out of this mission to help youth sports volunteers. The industry's changed, right? We can probably talk about that over the last 10 years, but that continues to remain the mission, whether it's for a for-profit youth sports business or a nonprofit youth sports business, is how do we provide the tools, our long-range vision, and the things we continue to work on is to be the largest single platform that really connects all the different experiences, communication points, scheduling points, the ability to pay, the ability to do background screening and really protect youth sports. And to your point, then doing things that really engage the families and the athletes, right? I think about, when we launched SportsEngine Play here recently this last month, was we have grandparents like my parents. They don't get to see Porter, my 5-year-old son, play sports. Imagine a world where at a reasonable price, they can watch every moment like they watched my older 18-year-old or myself. And so the vision of the company and long-term vision is to really be that single destination of all the touch points around youth sports and to really help these youth sports volunteers and administrators automate what they're doing while we make it better for moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and ultimately the athlete, because this is the group we all serve. This is why we're all doing it, is what we believe in the value of sport. And that's not just through the administrators and the parents and the grandparents. That's for those athletes and this next generation of people that we know are really going to lead much of the industries we're in. And so we're excited about making that impact for those families.
And maybe you could speak to what's your market share and how many, is it all sports, or what sports are you focused on, or what's the rollout like?
Yeah, it's a good question. So market share wise, we serve north of 30,000 businesses. If you actually use the amount of free software we actually provide on an annual basis too. So when I say small businesses, we're talking about your local hockey association. This might be 20 kids, it could be 50 kids, it could be 5,000 kids. So we're doing that full span of serving 30,000 of those that are using some of our paid-based tools, and then up to 5 to 10,000 on an annual basis that are using our free services as well. So think about roughly 40,000 small businesses, youth sports organizations, what people often say is the mom and pop organizations, up to the biggest ones in industry. And then roughly about 12 million or so of the 60 million or so that everybody estimates of the athletes that come through those experiences are touching our platforms. So overall, let's say 30 to 35% share of the overall market. And we do that across all sports, but we really focus on about 10 sports. you have your predominant ball and stick sports in the US and in North America. And then you have class-based sports like studios, like you have in competitive cheer and martial arts and dance and gymnastics. And so we serve all of those in additionally to the ones I talked about in the ball and stick space.
Amazing. So when we look at social media and how it's changed and how we think about youth sports, how has that affected, where you're playing and how you're going to grow?
Yeah, it's great. I think social is a macro topic, right? I think there's a lot around social of, it can be used for good and it can be used for bad. And I think that's well publicized is, activating within social. There's great products and we have extensions of our products of anytime we capture a moment of streaming or we have some form of photo, call it any of those things, having the extensions to share on social and create great communities. So within these social communities, there's a lot of good happening. And we want to be able to share these magical moments that we're capturing through our streaming products with their communities. So how does a creator or something actually go extend that community for good? And so we want to provide them all the tools and services that allow them to do that within those growing communities. So whether that's a small youth hockey association, a very large hockey association, a volleyball club like very well, and or it's the athlete on that team saying, I have a huge social following, or I want to be able to share these with some form of college scout or college that's interested in me. We have to make sure that we're providing those magical moments that are oftentimes shared with families, but also allow these athletes to grow their communities. And so every one of our products and services has some form of application that extends out to social.
And so is that through TikTok, Instagram, everything, anything in particular that you're mostly focused on, or it kind of goes across the spectrum?
Yeah, I mean,
YouTube?
I think what you find with what we do is we're going to extend to where those communities exist. So we don't focus on one particular social platform, specifically. We want, whether it's a business or an athlete or a family to be able to share to where that somebody's going to engage with that content. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and others, Twitter, etc. We want to be an extension of what they're trying to accomplish. And so we have to make sure we're able to connect to all of those.
So with that, when you talk about an athlete, right, and my mind immediately goes to NIL and how that's completely changing the landscape. How do you think NIL, how will that affect what you're doing, or, will it, or?
Yeah, so it's a fun topic. We have Athlete Direct in the NBC Sports team that really is our NIL focused team for collegiate athletes. We do a lot of collaboration with them. If we think about, what we've launched with SportsEngine Play, it's certainly those very personal moments, which is your practices, your games, your tournaments that you're going to be sharing. But it's also paired with produced content. We're really the first one out there doing this to say that people want to engage with a lot of different content. And how do we connect professional athletes and collegiate athletes down into these sports communities, oftentimes where they're from or where they're participating right now? And so we're working on things like daily video tips from your college athletes that are in your community. And then how are we going to distribute those to, families and kids, whether that's via mobile application, whether that's via SportsEngine Play, is finding ways that through tips and tricks or drills, as well as important things like sleep and nutrition and mental health, right? These big themes that are so important that we know collegiate athletes struggle with or have great best practices on, is how do we, make that extension from what we do in Athlete Direct to the youth sports household. And so all those things in the works. We haven't executed on them, but I anticipate next year you're going to start to see those things, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah, that is exactly the meat on this. I like to call it the professionalization of youth sports, right? So things that only pro athletes had to worry about in our day are now impacting, again, the parents as well, right? They're on the hamster wheel of going from, 5 different kids to 5 different sports and never letting down. And then we're seeing burnout and overwhelm and overuse and helping them navigate all of that. And your app could be a great tool to hand feed them the content that they need to help support their kids, right?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, you bring up in technology, right, is such a big part. I mean, we're a technology and a software company. But the ability to bring a tip from that college athlete that really resonates with you in your home direct to your home, right? Where the family and really the community starts is within your household without needing to go pay for some third party or to go somewhere else. Is how do we bring those things to the household through a very easy technology on your iPhone or on your Google phone, and then have that moment where that's shared between the parent and the athlete that allows us to say, this is happening elsewhere and it's okay. And let's talk about it, right? It's not just tips and drills, right? It's, these are topics that are important to all of us and we can be empathetic towards it. And I think, what's been really cool to see through the evolution of SportsEngine Play and the thinking around it is so many people are interested in how do we attack some of these challenges of youth sports and bring this back to the household where moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas can have these conversations with the kids and the kids can benefit. Because I grew up in a world where my dad said, go out there and shoot pucks, right? Or he said, go out there and shoot baskets. And I did it all day. And that's really where the love of sport comes from. I think oftentimes is at closest to the nucleus of your household. And so we're excited about bringing those moments to a lot of people.
So maybe we can go back to your personal situation though a minute and talk about how are you then raising your kids differently? If we look at it from the Raising Empowered Athletes, based on what you went through, how is it different for your kids, and what you focus on?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'll tell you a quick story and then I'll back into it. I have a wide array of ages of my kids, and that's a totally different topic, and we're not going to go too far into it. But I have an 18-year-old, I have a 5.5-year-old, and a 15-month-old. So as you can imagine, my day is pretty full. But I'll tell you a story about my 18-year-old. My 18-year-old is a very good athlete. I think he's a better athlete than me. He thought he was going to be the starting running back on his high school team this year. He played probably 15 to 20 snaps in total. I could be over or underestimating that. For effect, I think it probably is. But it wasn't, he struggled with that. But he kept a great attitude. He kept his effort. I've never been prouder of that kid in my entire life. And the thing I was talking about with my friends and colleagues was I never thought of a world where I wasn't going to play high school sports. I never thought of a world where I wasn't going to play college sports. It was just what I thought was my destiny. And so I had to take a step back and really value the things that are the most important, is to be empathetic to what he was going through, to work through a path and focus on the very core principles of how he can take this throughout his life. So it starts there, right? It starts with my oldest from my own personal experience. On the two youngers, it's give them opportunity to find what they love to do, and then focus on attitude and effort, and that I love them and I love what they're doing. And I think the step back from seeing my 18-year-old go through this experience, where at 8 or 9, I probably pushed him a little bit harder to see his experience. Not everybody's going to end up on a high school team. Not everyone's going to end up on a college team. And so now for me, it's, that fine balance of push and pull, right? Brakes and gas. If I feel like I need a little gas to see how he responds, I'll give it to him. If I need some brakes, I want to be empathetic and just trying to be human with him to say, I don't know what your journey is going to include, but we're going to give you opportunity, and we're going to focus on, did you work hard? Did you have fun? And were you a good teammate? And that's all the things we talk about. That's all we talk about with the little ones.
You're a great dad. I'm so impressed that you have that perspective, which again, the most I find the higher people played, the more they lean back as parents, because they know how hard it is and how much work it requires and how much effort it requires. My impetus for writing the book was when I got to kick and chase with my then 5-year-old, and I had played sports and I had worked at Nike with, all these great athletes. Yet you looked around and you saw somebody saying, well, you're not going to do club, are you? We're not going to do rec, are you? We're going club. We're going to Sweden this summer. Like, you better get on or you're going to be behind. And the FOMO starts setting in, and you start feeling like you're a bad parent, and allowing yourself to say, you know what, this is not our lane. If it's meant to be, I didn't start playing volleyball till I was a freshman in high school, but it turned out fine. I know you can't quite copy paste that because of how intense it is. And we're living in Southern California in the mecca of volleyball. And my daughter didn't start playing volleyball until she was 13, and she was behind. And I think we get to where we're meant to be in life, with the balancing of saying, try everything. And in the book, I go deep in that. Like, let's try every sport and allow them that my only requirements are whatever we start, we finish. And then at the end, we're going to evaluate. How did you have fun? And the only 6 words you need to hear from me throughout it are, I love to watch you play.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's great. It's funny is, I would say no one can actually argue this anymore, is in the U.S., and I live in the mecca of youth hockey, and I get to go to a rink every day in our communities that you're going to see 5 to 10 Division I players. You're going to see a couple NHLers, current and former. And at 5, I look at my kid, he's behind, but I didn't start skating till 6, right?
Yeah.
And no one really talks about it around, because everyone supports the community-based hockey associations and just what it's going to take, and that people are going to grow with that experience. So it's fun that you're in the mecca of volleyball. We're sitting here doing it in hockey. But to your point, I find that they either do 2 things. They volunteer and they get involved, and they're great coaches, and or they step back and they let it play out for the kid. And I think if we can all do that a little bit more, youth sports, and I'm optimistic we're on the right path. I think we're dealing with decades of this going in a hard direction. I think it's going to take decades to turn it around, but I think we've got the right commitment to do it.
I'd be curious to hear what's happening in the hockey world, but like I'm here in Los Angeles, I just heard the head of LA 28 speak, and she says one of the biggest investments that they're making in the city of Los Angeles as a give back is into rec sports, because what we've seen is the complete erosion of everything is pay to play now. We don't have any opportunities, or very limited opportunities, for kids above 8 or 9. Like, if you're 15 years old and you just want to play basketball, too bad. Like, there just isn't anything available. So what are you seeing from your perspective on what's happening to rec? Is there a resurgence in that? Is there an investment in that?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. Not everyone probably sees it. I spend most of my time in conversations with people in the industry and our partners is how do we use our platforms for good in a better way to put more people in pools and on courts and on fields. I'll give you an example. USA Swimming, which LA Parks and Recs has a huge investment, coming, and they've been doing a great job. We did a great activation with LA Park and Rec, as well as USA Swimming and SportsEngine. We have a big product called Team Unify that we've had. We have about 90%, 95% of the market share here in the US of swim teams. But we commonly saw a problem that water safety and learn to swim, particularly in certain communities, is a big challenge. And so last year we started attacking that. And USA Swimming has been at it forever. But we said we're going to join forces. And we did 3 locations. We had great turnouts. And what was really striking was Cullen Jones, who's an Olympian, world record holder, everyone knows for the team with Michael Phelps, was that, you're saving generations of people when you go do those things. And so that is at the base grassroots. I think others, I'll talk about a couple others, is, what NFL Flag is doing. Troy Vincent and his team are doing some amazing things. I've gotten to know Troy a little bit, but the growth in both boys and girls at the most recreational levels is amazing. You see what MLS Go has recently announced. I think that will really help in the recreational soccer space. And then a partner of ours, Diamond Allegiance, that actually focuses on the travel baseball side. I'm having a lot of conversation with Sandy Ogg, their CEO, who's a great partner of ours, about how do we more broadly impact the baseball community as well. It's not just about the travel baseball ecosystem, as we need these feeder programs to be really healthy and what that looks like. And so as much as, you might think we talk about the travel space, everyone knows we need this great base, and we're all committed to doing it. And it comes up in almost every conversation I have with our biggest partners is how do we use our collective platforms for good, and how do we invest in the base of this space? And so I think it's going to take some time. And I don't know exactly what the objective measurement of success looks like just right now, but we're going to figure that out.
I love that. And that's great to hear that it's happening across all the different sports, not just your major sports. But yeah, I love hearing that, flag football becoming an Olympic sport is a great opportunity for a lot of kids or parents who don't want their kid doing tackle, and keep them playing. Because what we know is kids who are active, who become adults who are active at 23, set up the next 60 years of their life to be active humans. And that's what we want, is we want athletes for life, not just because you're less than 5% will play D1, D2, D3, NAIA, any level. So this whole getting them involved early is about keeping them involved for life.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, we look at this and it's well publicized on around 11 and 12, right? Where you hit this inflection point where there's not a lot of recreational programs. I think right now the base is this 5 to 12, right, of recreational programs that we'll see a resurgence of. Over the next 5 to 10 years, what happens after that from 12 to 18? And then how do we continue that active life? This is a macro challenge that we all need to be committed to. But I think we're going to see meaningful progress over the next couple of years in that base from 5 to 12. And then from 12 to 18, I think it's going to be a huge opportunity. And it's boys and girls. A lot of people are making a great dent in these sports that have traditionally been boys sports are now also girls sports. Girls sports participation is trending in a really good direction, which is so great to see. So, I have a lot of half glass full view on what the next 10 years looks like, but it's going to take a lot of hard work.
So to wrap up, we're getting close to the end, but 2 big questions for you. One, what keeps you up at night? Like, what are the big opportunities? Like, if we could solve this, or if we had a vision for what, or maybe we do have a vision, but it's going to take time. What are you and your team most focused on in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, it's a great question. We had talked about being this single destination of for this community. How do you pull all the things together where it's very easy for them to achieve what they want to achieve? We've grown to the biggest market share with a lot of customers, with a lot of products and services. We need to make it easier to do all the things. So whether that's registering and getting somebody on a payment plan so that it can fit within their budget, whether that's allowing them to register and schedule for everything they want to accomplish and be able to communicate changes within their community, whether that's doing better than we're doing of 800,000 plus background screens on an annual basis within this community. I mean, we work with almost every national governing body in that space through our line of business, NCSI, or engaging customers through our streaming product, is we have to make it easier to be that single destination. And so we're working very much on, there's going to be a lot of new features and exciting initiatives. But if I just simplified that down, what you're going to see in the next 3 years is we're going to make this simpler. We're going to make it easier. We're going to make it better and more attractive to do more business with us, which we think is a good thing, but it's ultimately good for the community. And so it's maybe not one single thing. Make youth sports easier. We're going to do it. So we're on that path. We've been on that path for the last 3 years. I'm really confident in our team, and we're excited about making bigger impacts for our customers and partners.
On behalf of all youth sports parents everywhere, I would like to say yes. Thank you. Simplify, right?
Yeah, I mean, you probably have a couple apps. I hate it. You probably have SportsEngine and a few others.
Yes.
And our competitors hate that you have SportsEngine, and we're okay with that. We're going to figure that out. We're closer now than we were 3 years ago. 3 years from now, we're going to be a lot closer than we were today. We've got a team here committed to doing it. And it's fun to wake up with people every day that, for the most part, a lot of us, live this life. I can't go anywhere without somebody saying, what would make SportsEngine better, Brett? I say, I'm sure you're going to tell me in the next 5 minutes. So just rattle away. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. So last question before we wrap up. We like to ask all of our guests, and maybe if you got far enough in the podcast, you heard this, but and you can go in any direction you want with this. It doesn't have to be a word. It can be multiple ideas too. But I love asking, and knowing that you are an elite hockey player as well, but also with your corporate hat on and with your dad hat on, how would you answer the best athletes I know, and you could even put in quotations, corporate athlete, I know do this? What do you see from your chair? How do you define success?
Yeah. I've had to think a lot about this personally over my professional career, but if I think back and I think about my professional career as well as what I saw as an athlete, and I look back at the ones that I really admire, is everyone can have goals. You can write down goals. The what? You got to have a huge why, right? Can you apply your why to what you're doing, whatever that might be? Number 2, you have your what. Call it your goal system, you have some level of accountability with a coach or a partner or a teammate or something else. But the big thing is the how, right? And so you brought up something great, is if you can pair big why, a wonderful what for a period of time, and how you're going to go do it, and then reassess. And those four simple things, I think, allow you to be really successful in athletics. It allows you to be extremely successful in your professional career. Don't forget about the how, because your goals don't happen without the how. And then your reassessment period is have a partner to do it with, because they'll hold you accountable and keep you honest. And then also be somebody that you can have a conversation with if you think you're off your goals. So I know that's about four things, maybe more words than you thought, but
No.
focus on all those.
I love all of that, and I do the same thing. And the one thing I like to say to clients that I work with athletes is sometimes we get so focused on the how that we have an idea about, well, how am I going to become the MVP, or how am I going to make this team, or how am I going to get that job? And really the how is that ends up showing up when we've gotten really clear on the what and the why.
Yeah.
And the harder that we work on our what and our why, like how am I going to write the book, or how am I going to get that job, that shows up. But keep drilling down onto your what and your why, and the how will appear. And it may not come till further down the road, but that's the timing is the timing.
Yeah. I was reading a book a while ago, and it really hit me. If you take all of that, right? And I think you bring up such a great point. Shoe Dog, Phil Knight, In the Line.
Love it.
There
Such
is
a
no
great book.
There is no finish line, right? And so when we take that all and put it together, enjoy the journey, right? Like, you have to enjoy the journey, and because there's going to be tough points and there's going to be great points, but there is no real finish line. And 5 years from now, you and I are both going to know that we missed something along the way. And so long as we have these checkpoints along the way, we're going to be in a good spot.
Brett, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. And maybe you can let us know, or is it just get the SportsEngine app, but how can people follow along with your team and what the work you do?
Yeah, I think it's great. We just launched a brand new B2B website. So if you're potentially looking for business solutions in the areas I talked about, sportsengine.com you can go to. If you are a team manager and looking for team management and or streaming services, you can go to the app stores, you download them. There's no cost on both of them to download them and start using them. There's some paid-based tiers and features. So if it's just team management or if it's streaming, we do live streaming for free on SportsEngine Play. So go download it. We'd love to see everybody take it up, because there's a lot of great things for businesses and teams and just for end parents and families to get started. And you can do all of those things without ever having to speak with somebody, which is great too. But if you want to speak with somebody, we're here. I've got a big team that's happy to get you to your end destination. But everyone can go download any of those things today.
Thank you so much for your time. This was enlightening and fun. And I think the parents and the athletes and the coaches, and now I have ADs who are tuning in to what I'm doing. So I think it's such a great message for us all. So I appreciate your time.
Kirsten, this was fantastic. Let's do it again. I don't know if I'll make it back, but anytime you want, I'm happy to come back, because this was enjoyable.
I would love that. Parents, thank you for tuning in. Or athletes, everybody go buy the book, Raising Empowered Athletes, everywhere books are sold. You can get it on Amazon and probably have it to your door in the next 20 minutes. But if you would like to support your local independent publisher, you can go find it on their website too. It's selling very well. We just got announced that we were number 15 the book was announced as the number 15 selling book for public libraries, which means people are going in and requesting it and asking for it by name. So I so appreciate the likes, the follows, DM me, ask me your questions. Parenting is hard. Coaching is hard. Being a kid these days is really hard. But together, we've got this.